7 o'clock now. Start with Jai Radha Madhava and then we'll continue our discussion. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarangana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarangana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarangana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarangana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Privachkaracharya Sukha Prasadi His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Share my screen here. So we are reading today Canto 1, Chapter 4. The Canto Chapter 4 is actually appearance of Narada and text 2. Saunaka Uvacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Vara Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagavan Chukaha Saunaka Uvacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Vara Kadham Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagavan Chukaha. Saunaka uvacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatamvara Kadam Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagavan Chukaha. Does anyone want to repeat?
Suta Saunaka uvacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatamvara Katam Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagavan Shukaha.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Saunaka vacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Varaha Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagwan Shukaha.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody from Mataji's?
Shaunaka uvacha Shuta Shuta Mahabhaga Badano Tatambara Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yad Aha Bhagavan Chukaha.
Thank you. Now, what translation here? Saunaka Uvacha said, Suta Suta, O Suta Goswami, Mahabhaga, the most fortunate, Vada, please speak, na, unto us, Vadatam, of those who can speak, Vara, respected, Kadam, message, Bhagavatim, of the Bhagavatam, Punyam, pious, Yat, which Aha said, Bhagavan, greatly powerful, Shukaha, Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Saunaka said, O Suta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Sukadeva Goswami. Purport. Suta Goswami is twice addressed here by Saunaka Goswami out of great joy because he and the members of the assembly were eager to hear the text of Bhagavatam uttered by Sukadeva Goswami. They were not interested in hearing it from a bogus person who would interpret in his own way to suit his own purpose. Generally, the so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists who cannot enter into transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. Such impersonalists twist some meanings out of Bhagavatam to suit and support impersonalist views. And the professional readers at once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. Neither of these reciters are bona fide persons to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. Only one who prepared to present Bhagavatam in the light of Sukadeva Goswami, and only those who are prepared to hear Sukadeva Goswami and his representative are bona fide participants in the transcendental discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Cha Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vichakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Krupa Sindhu Bhavevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. He Krishna Karuna Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Nama Pankaja Maline Nama Pankaja Netraya Namaste Pankajangri. Hare Krishna. So I'll share my screen here. Are you able to see my screen, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we read this verse actually spoken by Saunaka Goswami. That's why I said Saunaka Uvacha. So as we all know, the sages in the Naimisharanya headed by Saunaka Goswami, they were asking question to Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami already answered the 6 questions almost in the first and in the 3 chapters. Then they were actually very, very inspired to hear more and more of Srimad Bhagavatam from the Suta Goswami. So that is why it is said here, Mahabhaga, who is Mahabhaga, is most fortunate. Who is most fortunate? Suta Goswami is most fortunate. And Vadana Vadatam Vara. So they want to hear more. What they want to hear more? Kadam Bhagavatin Punyam. Punyam means pious literature of Bhagavatam. Pious literature means it's not like mundane piety. This is spiritual pious literature of Srimad Bhagavatam. They want to hear more and more from the Suta Goswami, which he already heard from the Sukadeva Goswami. So that is the mood of the sages assembled in the Naimisharanya. So their sages, they felt the urgent need to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, they want to hear more and more. And also, they have so much compassion towards all the living entities, especially in the Kali Yuga. They know that the condition of Kali Yuga Vasis are more lazy, manda sumanda. So therefore, for the benefit of all of us, these sages, they have a lot of compassion towards all of us. Therefore, they are asking with more eagerness all these questions to Suta Goswami, and they want to hear further. So we already read the purport. So we will see here in the almost first few lines of purport, Prabhupada writes, Suta Goswami is twice addressed herein by Saunaka Goswami out of great joy, because he and the members of assembly were eager to hear the text of Bhagavatam uttered by Sukadeva Goswami. So here Suta Goswami was addressed by a couple of times. Suta Mahabhaga, they said. Why they're saying twice here? So when it's not like grammatical mistake, by mistake they put 2 times the same word, not like exactly like that. So when somebody says that 2 times, that means they're in most excited. So they want to learn more. That is why there's a Suta Mahabhaga. With so much of excitement, they want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, he was addressing Suta Goswami as Suta Mahabhaga. So whenever sometimes Prabhu, you want to hear something. That means you are saying Prabhu 2 times means that means you are more anxious, more eagerness, more excitement. You are saying to somebody. We see Ramacharya Prabhu. We see that excitement whenever he makes some announcement. He makes so much excitement. So that was the excitement all the sages were exhibiting here to ask Suta Goswami to hear more and more about this pious literature of Srimad Bhagavatam. So let us talk about a little bit discussion here. Why do you hear one important aspect of devotees' eagerness to hear? Why one has to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? For that matter, why one has to hear the scriptures? What happens when they hear the scriptures? What happens when they don't hear scriptures or Bhagavatam? Let's have a 1 minute quick discussion on this. Why we have to hear scriptures? Anybody want to share?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, Mataji.
I was just wondering, we must read scripture because they are the authentic source of knowledge.
Yes. Because they're the source of entire knowledge, so we need to hear so that we get that knowledge, right? Thank you.
Like to experience the first hand, how it feels to read the information at the by yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Anyone wants to add anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So the benefits of reading scriptures are many. But I can just think of like one thing, like, by reading scriptures, we can invoke our transcendental attraction and love for the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
That's the ultimate goal of reading scriptures.
You already completed today class, Mataji. That's what I'm supposed to say. Now we already said. So our class is over almost. Thank you, Mataji. Okay. So why must we hear and inquire with eagerness? That is the question. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it was mentioned here in in the third chapter we already read. Ateha danya bhagavanta ittam yad vasudeve kilalokanate kurvanti sarvatmakam atma bhavam nayatra bhuya parivarta ugraha. It is said, only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries, invoke transcendental ecstatic love onto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantee 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. Just like Veena Mataji and Vrajeshwar Prana Mataji shared here already, not something new, that by hearing with eagerness, by making some inquiries, what will happen? That we can invoke transcendental ecstatic love onto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of the universes, and he is giving guarantee 100% immunity from the all dreadful repetition of birth and death. What is that? I mean, here it's saying that we are getting immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. We are forced to take birth, we are forced to take death, we are forced to take all the diseases. So therefore, when we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, when we take shelter of all the scriptures, what happens? The byproduct is actually one will be free from all these dreadful repetition of birth and death, and will attain the ultimate abode. For example, if you don't hear Srimad Bhagavatam, or if you don't hear any scriptures, what is that we do? Generally, we engage all the mundane efforts, right? That is what we do. What is the other option for us now? So either we will engage in the mundane affairs, or we will engage in hearing the scriptures and doing the devotional service. So what happens when we engage in the mundane? Because we are all blessed with these senses, Panch Tanmatras, right? So there is a sense of hearing, there is a sense of touch, there is a sense of all the senses are open. Especially the power, we have two ears are given for us to hear. So therefore, when such a powerful organ is given to us, we need to understand what is the importance of giving 2 ears for us. If we are not careful about thinking about this, what to hear, what not to hear, then we engage in all the mundane stuff we try to hear, then what will happen? Our entanglement in the material world goes up and up and up. And what is the result? We are completely in the cycle of birth and death. We are suffering, we are forced to take birth, we are forced to take death, we get diseases, and then we continue this vicious cycle of birth and death eternally. So we don't know. So therefore, a wise person can think of that, what I am doing in life after life after life. So is there anything that ending to this? And when we seriously think of that, then we take shelter of Guru, take shelter of scriptures to understand. So what is the meaning of life, and what we are supposed to do, how we have to end all these miseries in the material entanglement. So in the purport, second half of the purport, Prabhupada already wrote here, generally, so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists who cannot enter into the transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. Here, the importance of hearing is given, and Prabhupada also is cautioning us not only hearing, but where to hear and how to avoid hearing from those places. Especially Prabhupada mentioned here, careful from the professional readers or professional reciters and the so-called learned impersonalists, because Prabhupada is saying that they cannot enter into transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. Why? Who are actually professional reciters? And Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, some of them, I'm speaking here, one who is not in the parampara, they're not in the disciplic succession. And also, they has no taste towards Bhakti Yoga, and they don't have taste towards Bhakti Yoga. And then simply on the strength of his grammatical knowledge, intellectual ability, and word jugglery, they simply depend on these three things to recite Bhagavatam or to recite any scripture in Bhagavad Saptas or whatever things that especially happens. And they maintain their bodies to earn money for livelihood and sense gratification. And they are averse to this Supreme Lord Vishnu and his devotees. They do not understand the supremacy of the Lord. And then what they do, they directly go into 10th canto to misexplain most confidential part of the pastimes, especially the Rasalila, to entertain the audience. So here, first of all, there is no offense to the professional reciters or the impersonalists, because this is also kind of little Vedic way, a most traditional way to recite Bhagavatam in Bhagavad Saptas. I'm not denying that fact, but when you are doing with what is the intention behind doing these activities? If you're not careful about those things, and then what is the ultimate result of doing? Of course, when you recite Srimad Bhagavatam, when you are even reciting even Sanskrit slokas itself, it invokes so much auspiciousness around the atmosphere. It's very good. There is no doubt about it. But so what is the ultimate result by doing, like Prabhupada explained here? They are simply showing word jugglery and intellectual ability, depending on that. And then they're actually managing this only for livelihood, for getting money. And by actually directly entering into 10th canto without even understanding about the Supreme Lord, what is his position and how creation happens, how he was, those things, without understanding those preliminary things about the Supreme Lord, they directly enter into 10th canto. So what is that they get? They don't get much. So that is what, so Prabhupada is mentioning, you should be very, very careful. If they, without understanding, if they enter into 10th canto, and they're talking about most confidential pastimes of the Supreme Lord, they do not understand. They misexplain most of these, they misunderstand, and they misexplain, especially the confidential part of the Rasalila part. They think that in the middle of the night, all these women, they left their husbands, they left their family, and they went for the to attend Krishna. So from the mundane point of view, if you see all those things, what people will think when they hear these kind of recitations from these Bhagavatam. So therefore, Prabhupada is very much cautioning here where to hear, where our hearing capacity should be invested here. So therefore, we have to be very, very careful with these reciters. Next, one more is impersonalist. What is the problem with the impersonalist? Hearing from them. Here, they are unable to understand the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. And they think that the Supreme Truth has no form, no qualities. So therefore, they think the ultimate Supreme, ultimate truth has no form. So that is their understanding. And then God has no personal form, and Krishna is like any other person of this world. So maybe Krishna is a more powerful or qualified person, but he is also like a conditional soul like us, and he will accept material bodies like us. So this was the misconception or misunderstanding these impersonalists has that. Then and Prabhupada said in the purport also that they twist the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam to suit their view of impersonalist view. Totally wrong understanding about Krishna. Therefore, one should not hear from the impersonalist. I don't know how they will understand this because I don't hear much about the impersonalist, how they talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. But throughout the Bhagavatam is talking about the personal form of the Lord. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam is clearly said in the verse. And also it's talking about everything is personal. So talking about Krishna's pastimes, childhood pastimes, and also Krishna's devotees, everything actually in personal view of is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, so one should be very, very careful to hear from impersonalists and also his professional reciters. Sanatana Goswami explains that milk is very nectarian. There is no doubt about it. But milk is touched by a little bit of poison taken. Then what will happen? The entire milk gets poisonous. Similarly, the scripture is Amala Puran. Srimad Bhagavatam is supremely pure. But by the touch of these impersonalist understanding, what will happen? The whole Bhagavatam gets, like a bit of poison, it becomes poisonous. There is no impact on us. So for those people, what will happen? They will recite, they will also speak Bhagavatam, but Krishna is completely hidden in the book of Bhagavatam. He does not enter into the heart of that living entity, and he will not realize, he will not reveal himself to anybody. So he will simply hidden in the books of Bhagavatam. So therefore, the effect, there is no effect. So there is no realization hearing from these personalities. So one should be very careful. So now we understand the importance of hearing. Of course, this concept of hearing is the most fundamental part of devotional service. Out of 9 processes of devotional service, Prahlad Maharaj explains that it starts with Sravanam. So we should hear. So and then caution here, we are not to hear. And also next, we should hear from a bona fide devotee. But what is the power of hearing here? So hearing is very important, but hearing only is not important. So the quality of hearing also makes a lot of difference. So which is explained, example, in Kunti Maharani prayers, she emphasizes on the quality of hearing. So what is the mood? Like I explained before, what is the mood when we are hearing? Is it really meant to satisfy or to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or is there any motive, other ulterior motive to hear these messages of Bhagavatam or any scriptures? That is where we need to understand. So, for example, that is why even devotional service also is categorized into 3 modes of material nature. So even practicing devotional service also not on the same platform everywhere. So these modes are there everywhere, in the Bhakti platform or other platforms. So modes are always affecting on our consciousness. So there is always a quality of hearing, quality of our devotional service, quality of chanting the name of the Lord. So, for example, if you see Draupadi is very desperately calling the name of the Lord Krishna because of the condition she has. For example, if somebody has materially very well settled, that person, even though he understands about the importance of hearing, importance of the scriptures, but the intensity of calling that name is not that much like Draupadi, because she is completely in the helplessness. She is desperate situation. Therefore, that calling has that potency and that eagerness is there. But otherwise, what will happen when we are comfortably situated materially on the platform? Even though we understand the urgency or importance of hearing, but still we may not be doing with the same intensity. So therefore, quality of hearing is all mixed. So, like I said, devotional service is also under the influence of modes. Even hearing also under the influence of 3 modes. So the ignorance, hearing with ignorance is the worst, because that invokes anger, enviousness, and pride. But if we are hearing with passion, your mode is that everyone can be impressed when I speak these words. Therefore, I understand the philosophy, I understand the concept. Therefore, when I speak, no, they will be everybody impressed. That is the mode of passion, hearing with mode of passion. And the best is goodness always. And then one wants to free oneself from the material entanglement. That was the mood when we hear the scriptures. That is the goodness. Of course, hearing with the transcendental mood, aloof from all these modes of material nature, is the highest mood to hear, ultimately to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the ultimate. And with this, I want to refer this, we already read. Of course, Ravi Prabhu explained this in when he was talking about on this verse. But this is a very important message that we need to understand here. In 1.3.44, it said the word Nirvishta means that Sutta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through his ears. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, from the bona fide devotee. And then you can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. That is the secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. And an important point also mentioned here, no one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. And no one can pure in mind who is not pure in action. And no one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But see here, one cannot give the rapt attention because he is not pure in the mind. Why he is not pure in the mind? Because he is not pure in all his actions. Why he is not pure in all his actions? Because he is not pure in all these gross things that in our life that we do, eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Because that is why we should be very, very careful in eating whatever we are eating. If we eat, that affects our consciousness. So therefore, that affects on our mind. So therefore, if we are taken care and gross nicely, our affects our subtle level. And subtle level is good. Then actually we can hear Srimad Bhagavatam with a rapt attention. But, and Prabhupada, the next line is giving very hope. He's giving hope for us. But somehow or other, Prabhupada is saying, but even though he's correct, whatever he said before, but somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this was the Prabhupada is giving such an assurance here in this purport. Somehow or other, leave about all the things, whether you are quality hearing, not quality hearing, all those things. Somehow or other, if you have a faith and if you put rapt attention to from the bona fide devotee, if you try to hear, even that person can see Krishna every page of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this was the most hope giving for us to read Srimad Bhagavatam. I know many of the devotees in this, they're very much attached to Srimad Bhagavatam. They're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. They're attached to Bhagavatam, and their realization is more compared to me. I am like an inferior listener. Like Bhupa Prabhu said in the last class, there are two listeners, right? Inferior listener and superior listener. I consider myself as an inferior listener. And today, inferior listener is talking in front of all these superior listeners who are very perfect in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis. So kindly forgive me my inabilities to speak anything on this matter. So we will go next. So how does this eagerness? How does this eagerness to hear will develop, or why to develop? We will refer to another beautiful sloka in Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto chapter 213. Atapumbir dvijasreshta varnashrama vibhagashaha swanutishtasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. Best among twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and others of life to please the Supreme Personality of God. So here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter itself, we already read this several times. So one of the highest duty of any in the human mankind, whether he belongs to any varna, any ashrama, it doesn't matter. the highest duty one has is actually the goal is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that was the highest duty one should have. But we understand that is the ultimate duty, or that is the goal of life. One should have the highest goal in his life to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are not in this, in this position. How do we do that? Especially for me, we think I'm not in that mood, and I don't have that much sufficient faith, and then to hear eagerness and understand to know Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal in my life. So how can we do that? That one also is given in the next consequent verses in the same Srimad Bhagavatam. That what is that? Sususho Saddhanasya Vasudeva Kadaruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirthani Shevana. I think by one sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all the vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for the hearing message of Vasudeva. So here is the secret revealed, how to develop the affinity to hear the scriptures or the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the secret here? When we submissively do some service to the great personalities, great sages, great guru, when some kind of service is done, who is free from all the vice, what will happen? Naturally, the affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva comes in our mind, enters into our heart. So therefore, that is the secret to develop hearing. One has to surrender. Why one has to surrender submissively to the Guru? That is the secret here. When we do some little service to these great sages or great saintly persons, the affinity to hear the message will develop in the core of our heart. So when that kind of develops in the core of our heart, what will happen? In the next verse, it said, Shunvatam Swakada Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Hridayantasto Hiya Bhadrani Vidnoti Suhrutsatam. So Krishna said, Krishna, personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in the everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, what he will do? When he sees an affinity develops in the heart, what he will do, Paramatma? He will cleanses the desire for material enjoyment, and from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear that message, which are themselves virtuous and when properly heard and chanted. So when we develop that affinity to hear the pious message of Bhagavatam or any scriptural message, Krishna in the heart, in the Paramatma, he was observing the Jiva when he was coming towards him. The moment he sees a little bit interest, little bit faith, then Krishna cleanses all the material desires, whatever he has, and actually he helps us to hear more and more. So that was the secret here. So there is no need to put in a separate effort to get away all these material desires. Krishna will help us to cleanse these material desires automatically when you develop that affinity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So this was the secret, that whatever secret Krishna is giving in the second chapter of Bhagavatam, how to develop that taste and how to develop the eagerness to hear these messages of the Bhagavatam. So benefits of hearing with eagerness. So these are the, I found, which are interesting, that these are the benefits of hearing with eagerness. If you hear with eagerness, offenselessly, without making any offenses to other devotees or any, for that matter, anybody, one should be free from influence of the modes of material nature. And then now, what is that we get? We get fearlessness and we get free of lamentation. We feel understood and we are peaceful and happy within ourselves, and we detach and knowledgeable and invoke Krishna's presence in our life, receive Krishna's mercy and transform this place to Vaikuntha. And how to preach nicely to others, we can ultimately, the benefit is that we all can go back to Godhead. So these are the important things that we can note when automatically happens when we hear these pious messages of Bhagavatam with so much eagerness. Therefore, attentive hearing and submissive service are very, very important. Sincerity and seriousness, they're always talked in Srimad Bhagavatam, throughout the Bhagavatam. So, next, you will see one more reference in 4th canto. Prithu Maharaj, we all know, we all read in Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto completed in the evening classes. Most of you are regularly attending and know about the Prithu Maharaj story. I think I need not separately tell. Prithu Maharaj he was doing Ashwamedha Yagyas, and he already completed 99, and when supposed to do 100, Indra created all the impediments for not doing the Yagyas. And of course, Prithu Maharaj is not happy with that. But Lord Brahma came and Brahma told that, stop, don't worry about completing 100 Yagyas. And then Prithu Maharaj obeyed the instructions of Lord Brahma. And then he stopped the Yagya, 99 Yagya, Ashwamedha Yagya, after the 100 Yagya. And then because he was actually obeying Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu was very much satisfied with the behavior of Prithu Maharaj. So therefore, he personally appeared in the sacrificial arena of Prithu Maharaj, where he was ready to do the sacrifice. And then Prithu Maharaj actually prays to the Lord Vishnu. So what is saying? Kamayena tadapi aham kvachin nayatra yushmat charanambuja swaha mahattamanta hrudayan mukachyuto vidatsava karanayutam eshamevara varaha. What is the translation here? My dear Lord, I therefore do not wish to have the benediction of merging into your existence, a benediction in which there is no existence of nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. I want the benediction of the at least 1 million years, for thus I may be able to hear about the glories of your lotus feet from the mouth of your pure devotee. So here, Prithu Maharaj is very, very clear what he doesn't want or what he wants. So he mentioned what he doesn't want in first 2 lines, and then he mentioned in the what he wants in the next 2 lines. So we know what he's saying, na kamaya nadha tadapi aham kvachin na yatra yushma charanam bhujasvaha. He's saying na kama, he has no desire to get the liberation. What kind of liberation he doesn't want? Especially he doesn't want the liberation, the Sayujya Mukti, that everybody, most of people are aspiring to merge into effulgence of the Lord, the Supreme Brahman. So he doesn't want that benediction. Why he doesn't want? Because that will not give him any opportunity to see his lotus feet, and also there is no opportunity to do any service to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is very clear he doesn't want that kind of mukti, that kind of benediction into merging into your existence. Because there is no nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. So, Prithu Maharaj is very clear that what he doesn't want. Now, you see in the 3rd and 4th line of the same sloka, Mahattamantir Hrudayan Mukachito. Mahattamantir means great devotees or pure devotees. Hrudaya, what they carry in this Hrudaya, in the heart, they will carry the Supreme Lord, Mukachito. So therefore, what he wants to do, he wants to have 1 million years so that he can hear from the pure devotee of the Lord. Or then he is asking the benediction to give. What he was asking the benediction, he wants to get at least 1 million years to hear the pious messages from all these wonderful devotees from the mouth of the pure devotees. So that is the mood. We may not be having that level of understanding, but that is the mood. Prithu Maharaj actually praying to the Vishnu. So we take at least little bit inspiration from this and develop eagerness to hear Srimad Bhagavatam so nicely. So we will go to, we will actually see something Prabhupada mentioned in the one of the purport. We will read that and then now. So this is for Canto 4, 2025. Can somebody read this?
Sure, Prabhu. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice maybe resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment, he had forgotten everything.
Thank you, Mataji. So until that, we have forgotten everything, but the magic happens when we try to hear from a mouth of a pure devotee. That voice may resemble like a mundane voice. He is also speaking like any other person speaking. But Prabhupada is saying here, the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. Because the purity that they're carrying, because of the realization, to greatest realization that a pure devotee has, whatever he speaks emanating from his mouth, it has the miraculous effect on the hearer. So when we hear such a powerful, powerful devotee, that we develop automatically that affinity towards hear more and more, and more and more, and also immediately what will happen? He immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord. Whatever the forgotten relationship will be revived in our consciousness, and we will remember his eternal relationship with the Lord. See, Prabhupada always gives one example. So the speaker should be potent, and the hearer also should be attentive, like Saunaka Goswami. Like here in the verse, Suta Goswami is so potent speaker because he is representing the disciplic succession, and also he heard it from the Sukadeva Goswami, who is also pure devotee, and so Saunaka Goswami also, they are very much eagerness to hear the same message from the Suta Goswami. So in that sense, the speaker is also very potent, and the listener also very potent. So therefore, naturally, the bhakti automatically sprouts from that relationship. So Prabhupada always gives example. For example, a father, a father is potent, and also mother. Both husband is potent and wife is also potent. And naturally, the child was born. If both of them are not potent, what will happen? It's very hard chance to get a child. Similarly, here, if the speaker has a potency and here also has some kind of potency, then out of that relationship, the naturally bhakti automatically born from that relationship. So with that, we'll talk about one pastime of Prabhupada, and then actually from after that we will end today's session. So I don't remember. I think I heard one Mataji. Her name I do not know exactly. So she was living in Calcutta in the 1970 or 71 that time. So she was staying with her boyfriend, her husband, her boyfriend. I think she's staying with her boyfriend. And especially in that year 1970-71, there was a war between India and Pakistan, and Bangladesh is formed at that time. So at that time, what happened? There are a lot of refugees came from Bangladesh to Calcutta here. So the situation is actually not good. Situation is very chaotic situation. And at that kind of chaotic situation in Calcutta ISKCON temple, this Mataji, she had one friend who is already living in the temple. So she knows her, and she called and she invited toward that devotee in the ISKCON temple. She invited her to come to a temple because the situation is not good. So she temporarily can stay in the temple. So therefore, this Mataji went to live in the temple, stay in the temple for some time. She joined and she went there. But once she went to temple, after seeing all the devotees in the temple, she is not very much satisfied because I think at that time the temple is not doing very well. So the devotees are also there is no much cooperation between the devotees. and the situation is not very encouraging, very disturbed and perturbed environment. So there's a lot of confusion going on within the congregation. So sometimes it happens. I mean, there is no proper, sometimes proper leader is missing, the proper is there. These things happens in the congregation sometimes. So this was going on. So she is not liking to stay in that place, and she want to get rid of, she want to go away from that place. She's not finally interested to continue in that place. So when her friend told, she told to her friend, so I'm not very comfortable in this temple, so I want to go out of this temple. She expressed her intention to his friend. Then her friend told, anyway, you already stayed for some time in the temple, even though you don't like, I request you one thing, so please stay some more time. Srila Prabhupada actually comes from, I don't know from where place he's coming from, Western country to there, or I don't know. So Prabhupada is going to arrive next 1 week or few days. So therefore, because you didn't see Prabhupada, so therefore wait 3-4 days so that you can see Srila Prabhupada, you can take his blessings, and then you can go wherever the place that you want. So because she had a lot of trust on his friend, so this Mataji continued to stay some more days so that he can see the Prabhupada, and then she can leave the place. So finally the time came, Prabhupada arrived after 4-5 days to the temple, and everybody received Prabhupada so on reverence. And then next morning, Prabhupada gave a Srimad Bhagavatam class. And most all the congregation devotees attended Srimad Bhagavatam class, and then Bhagavatam class is over. And then Prabhupada also sensed here the temple atmosphere. He can sense that there is much cooperation, not much cooperation in the devotees, what is going on across the devotees and all those things. And then he arranged a Ishtagosti program among all the congregation devotees and all the devotees around the place. And he called in the morning an Ishtagosti. And among this Ishtagosti, whatever so-called the Matajis also is there as a part of that Ishtagosti. And now Prabhupada is talking. See, our real position is that we are all eternal part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. So we have nothing to do with this material body, or we have nothing to do with whatever material things that are happening in the material world. Sometimes good things may happen, sometimes bad things may happen. So there is nothing to do with whatever is happening currently in our situation, because our position is always a spirit souls who are part and parcels of the Lord. So our constitutional position is actually to serve the Supreme Lord. So she heard when Prabhupada is saying, well, she was expecting actually Prabhupada will talk something about the cooperation between the devotees. Maybe he's recommending some solution how we can go together in the temple. That's what she was expecting. But Prabhupada is saying the philosophy is same thing. But you know what happened when she heard from the lotus mouth of a pure devotee? Of course, this philosophy we all know, and she also heard the same words from all other devotees several times when they are speaking. But the same words, when it was uttered by the lotus mouth coming the pure devotee, what happened? There was little transformation in the heart of Mataji. So she felt the divine feelings, and she can felt the divine feelings in her consciousness. She was so much attached to Srila Prabhupada. So why I'm telling this story is, sometimes we may also tell the same philosophical principles, but when we hear from the lotus mouth of a pure devotee, the impact is it has a profound impact in our consciousness. So therefore, as it is said here, when the words may be similar, when our spiritual master or when pure devotee talks also, it may appear that this is also something like normal. But those words has very much potent, and when we hear those words from the mouth of a pure devotee, it has a profound impact on our consciousness, and then there is a change, the transformation that automatically happens in our consciousness. But the same thing, like you said, Prabhupada is cautioning us, when we hear from non-bona fide devotees, professional reciters, whatever impersonators, whatever you call. So that transformation may not come in on the heart. They may be speaking something about the Lord only. They may be reciting the same slokas only. They may be reciting same thing. But the profound impact may not be there in our consciousness when we hear from those. Rather, actually, it may get corrupted. So therefore, we have to be careful. So that is why we say when we read every day morning when we do Guru Puja, Guru Mukha Patta Vakya Chitte Korya Aikya Arana Korye Mana Esha. So his lotus mouth, why his lotus mouth is called? Because he has no other desire. Guru or the saintly devotees, they don't have any other desire. What is their desire? They're simply talking about only spiritual world, how the Krishna is talking about only matters related to Krishna. Therefore, whatever Guru describes is only transcendent topics, talking about the spiritual world. Therefore, his mouth becomes lotus mouth. So sometimes, we feel that what is the magic? This is the magic that one will get affinity towards hearing by little bit service, by little bit hearing from the pure mouth of pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. So in the 10th canto also, Parikshit Maharaj asked the same question to Sukadeva Goswami. So we are using this material air, material senses. How matter can touch the spirit, right? That's what Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukadeva Goswami. We are using all the material platform, the senses, the nose, everything. But how can this can be spiritualized? That is what the question asked to Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami answer is that everything is a property of Krishna, including this material energy. So therefore, when we engage this material senses and chant the name of the Lord, the name and Lord, they're not indifferent, they're same. So therefore, the name has the potency to transform the matter into spirit. Therefore, when we offer prasadam, what will happen? Krishna glances, he spiritualizes things. So therefore, when we chant the name of the Lord, that spiritualizes the entire atmosphere. It has the potency to spiritualize the entire atmosphere. So therefore, one has to hear with a bona fide devotee with rapt attention, so that kind of transformation happens in our heart too. So with that, I think almost 7:58 now. So these are the topics we discussed today. Why to hear from scriptures with eagerness, why we must avoid hearing from these reciters, hearing under 3 modes of material nature, and how does eagerness to hear to develop, and power of hearing from a pure devotee. So these are the topics we discussed. Thank you very much. Kindly forgive me my inability to convey this message, or I don't have that much realization. So with this, I'm going to end here. Jai. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada.